All right, you ready there, Headbang? Let's go. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Boom, and welcome to the Big Honker Podcast, brought to you by our good friends at Double T British Kennels. I'm Jeff Stanfield with the world famous Andy Shaver.
That's me.
How was your hunt this morning?
Tough. No wind.
And still killed 20.
And a band. I'm on a roll killing
That's your
bands.
fourth band this year?
Fourth band and 10 hunts.
And how many bands? We killed but 3 last year, didn't we?
Josh Moore said 7, but I don't remember that.
So we're over halfway there then, if Josh Moore's correct. Are they all banned in the same spot?
2 of them were for sure.
2 of them for sure? And the other ones you don't know then?
1 of them I don't, 2 of them I don't know. 1 of them I'll find out.
And who got the band today?
Stefan.
How'd he manage to do that?
Pulled the Ron shell.
Oh, good for him. So that's good. Dad'd be happy.
Ron's going to Washington.
There you go. Good for Dad. All right, with us today from the great state of Minnesota, minus all the Muslims, Mr. Jack Zimmerman. Hello, Jack. How are you doing, sir?
Good. I'm glad to be back, guys.
Glad to have you back. We got a lot of people reach out after the first time that we had you on. And
did I see you on stage with Zach Brown, or am I mistaken?
No, you're 100% right. It was a great time. He's a great guy. His whole band, just great people. And they brought me down there with the Independence Fund. They awarded me a new track chair so I can stay out in the outdoors and stay hunting. I got one almost 10 years ago already, and I wore that one out, so it's time for a new one. And they awarded me one down there, and they honored me with a little chicken fried down there. It's pretty awesome. What an experience to have.
So you know? You said it's a new track chair?
Yeah, so I'm typically in like a Segway is what I call it. It's a Segway base with like a seat built on top of it, modified. And it gives me the ability to get around. It's from the organization called Segs for Vets. I was one of the first 3 recipients, and I've been on one ever since, almost 10 years ago. And the best thing about that is it's a nonprofit, and they can call their own shots. So when my wheelchair breaks, I can drive down there and have a new wheelchair in 2 hours instead of going through the whole VA process of, getting a referral and then getting it sent to here and then having it shipped in, where everything there is in house. I don't have to deal with any of the referrals and all that, where they can just fix my stuff and keep me moving.
Now, did you say last time you were on? Did you say that the VA has been a good experience for you?
I mean, I don't have any like bad things to say about them. I mean, I have my frustrations. I've had my bouts. Just getting a new truck here a few weeks ago and having to get it out, or 3 months ago, and having to get it outfitted. That was a major struggle and a major frustration. But the healthcare stuff wise has been great. I mean, on that side of it, it's a lot of times just the benefit side that's really a struggle.
Could you just hear so many different horror stories that it's hard to like gauge how bad it actually is, because like you talk to some people and they're like, no, it's been nothing but great for me.
And it sounds horrible, but I feel like sometimes they treat me different than a lot of guys, because they don't want me in front of a camera on Fox News saying, hey, I've been treated wrong. It's and I'm sitting there with missing my limbs.
Right. Yeah. So
I feel I hate that. And that's why I always advocate for other veterans to make sure that they can get the care that they deserve and need as well.
So you recently got back from South Dakota. You were pheasant hunting there?
Yeah, I didn't even tell you about the track chair. I think we got right off track with the Segway, but the track chair is a chair that I hunt off. It's a track chair that's built right in Marshall, Minnesota here. It's got tracks on it. Like it looks like a tank almost. And that's what I hunt out of then. And it gives me a better platform and more stability and the opportunity to go a lot more places that I wouldn't be able to go normally.
So it just whips you up right where you need to go.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal machine, and it's something I use like out in South Dakota shooting pheasants. It's we go to Flying J Outfitters out there, and John does a great job on his farm up there. So there's always trails cut to get around, and it makes it a really nice, enjoyable place for me to hunt with my buddies. There's a bunch of other veterans that come up, and and some other guys that are the Pheasants family that are always supporting us, and they're just to the veterans community that invite us up there to go hunting with them.
So the lifespan was 10 years on your last chair. Is that what they're supposed to last, about 10 years? Because that surprises me. That's a long time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I've had to replace a lot of parts and stuff like that on them. I'm not exactly easy on equipment. I'm probably doing a lot of stuff I shouldn't be, but if I learned anything about step on an IED, it's just skin. You can regrow it and fix it. So have fun, But yeah, I mean, I try to take care of my equipment the best I can, but it's my legs, and there's times where you're jumping off stuff or doing whatever you're not supposed to do with your legs too. So stuff gets beat up, but for the most part, the equipment's pretty solid, and I don't really have too many problems with it. And it lasts for the most part.
Have you ever been hunting and like ate it on a chair, like tried to stop too soon or something?
Oh yeah, there's times, especially like when I was training dogs and that, I get close to water, and then or going and trying to jump like where the water's running through 2 ponds or something like that. I try to skip across, do the one track across kind of thing, and next thing you know, you don't quite make it. You're in the drink, and all your dummies are falling on top of your head. And, the dog's looking at you like, what's going on right now?
Then what do you do?
Oh, you just jump right back in. It's kind of life. You get knocked down, you get back up, and it happens when you're out pheasant hunting. You find that badger hole. Next thing you know, you drop a crack in there, and you're sitting on the ground, and you're doing the god dang it son of a gun.
Do you have a backup chair so when you break this one, you have another one that uses, or are you just completely waiting around for the next one to get here?
No. So when my kids were little is kind of when it really started for me. I have 2 Segways that I use typically most of the time, and I leave one at the house here almost all the time. And I have an indoor and an outdoor chair, and there's so many nasty places out there in the world. You're going into public bathrooms with your wheelchair, you're going into Walmart, you're going across these parking lots. And I'm watching my kids crawl around the floor, and I'm like, man, I'm dragging this stuff in the house, And it was like one day of that, and I had 2 chairs done, and that way I always keep one in the house that I just use in the house, and it's always clean. And I got my other chair to go out in the world and put. I
never have even thought about that. That's where people like us we forget how we don't realize how blessed we are. But I never have thought about that. About taking everything from the outside inside. That's a very interesting concept or thoughts.
Well, you do. You just never thought about it.
No, I never.
Do you wear your tennis shoes in the house?
Yes.
Well, you just kick your shoes off.
Yeah. I don't even take my shoes off that much.
Well, you're bringing everything from the outside in.
I don't, but I wipe my feet off when I come in though. But I just don't think about it. But
that's not sanitized.
All the new.
We're the same though, Jeff. Well, I don't take my feet off either,
all the new guides that work for me though. They all take their shoes off when they come to the house.
It's a northern thing.
It is a northern thing.
Because of mud, right?
It's all that salt. Yeah, it's all that salt and stuff you're dragging in the house from all the sidewalks being salted and this and that. And, it's always frozen.
And I don't even wear shoes in the summer around the house anyways because I'm outside and our yard doesn't have stickers.
You got those Walmart feet at the end of the day.
No, my yard's clean. My yard's clean, so I don't have them. I call that grocery store feet. There is nothing nastier in the world than seeing somebody at a fucking grocery store. People walk into stores with no shoes and shit. Like, oh God,
so bad,
nasty. What about your waiters? Like, do you get special waiters?
Yeah, actually, a buddy of mine, we're out of Boyd. I had a friend that at Boyd, and they were going to China or something like that to, where the waders were being manufactured. And I took an old set of waders I had when I was a teenager. I jumped in them, and we literally cut them off and zip tied them exactly how I wanted them made. And he took them, the zip tied ones with him, and brought me back a brand new pair of waders. And so I got like a jack sack, basically. I jumped in of a wader, and it's great. I use it all the time for all kinds of different scenarios. It keeps me dry, it keeps me warm. That's the main thing. I can go out in the, float me out in the slough and put me on a dog platform and let me shoot off that thing all day. Or I can lay on the ground out in the cornfield and I'm still staying warm and I got that barrier, and I used it when I went up in the mountains to kill that mountain lion. I wore him up there, and just pulled my jacket over the top. So I got no snow going down, my back.
God bless you. I'm telling you right now, you should be an inspiration for everybody that's in a wheelchair. You can do
Not just
you can't
anybody.
do everything that you want to do, but you do 99% of what you want to do. I'm sure there's some things you can't do.
I say all the time. Yeah, I say it all the time. I still do everything I want to do. I just do it a little different. And it's maybe this is a call to action for everybody, but I was just up in North Dakota, and that was the first time that I got back up on the water, and I got to shoot divers, out in the water, and there's definitely not. I'm not gonna be able to go out there and do that myself like I could when I was a kid, and if there's those guys out there that that used to hunt and they're getting a little bit older or whatever it may be, help those guys get back out in the field, whatever it takes. Even that one day in the fall, get those guys out, because it changed my life. It felt so good sitting back on the water, watching divers flying around, shooting on the water, laughing with my buddies. And I was back on the slough, and it brought me back to, when I was laying in a hospital bed at one point in my life, I never knew if I was going to be doing that stuff ever again. And, you surround yourself with the right people, and amazing things can happen.
I don't think we talked about you killing the mountain lion last time, did we?
I'm not sure if we did or not. That's a pretty wild story.
What was that like?
So it all started out actually I was pheasant hunting out in South Dakota. Me and my dad were out there, and we got there, and I got in the lodge, and I threw my stuff down on the bed that I always stay in. And my dad comes in the room, and he throws his stuff down on the other bed, and I'm like, oh man, I already know I'm in for a week and no sleep now, And I'm
Snore?
like, come on, Dad, there's so many bedrooms around here. Oh yeah, he's a big snore. And I had my dog in there with me, and it was the first night, and I remember my dad went to bed, and I went in there, and I was like, man, he's already at it. And I was trying to sleep for a while, and I looked at my dog, and he's like, I didn't even be able to run tomorrow. I didn't get no sleep, So I grabbed him, and we went in a different bedroom and laid down. I was kind of scrolling on my phone, and I seen this outfitter out in Wisconsin that was taking guys out like me in Buffalo County. And I said, hey, if you got a slice of grass that you'll let me sit on in Buffalo County, I'll take it. I would just love to hunt anywhere in Buffalo County just to say I've hunted there. It's so historic. So many big deer have been shot there. I would just love to sit an evening out there. And he's like, oh, we can do way better than that. And his name was Kyle Bushman. He had Hunting for Heroes, I believe it was called. And he's still running it. And I hit him up, and he's like, hey, we're doing a muzzleload hunt this fall. Come on out. And so I went out there and I started hunting with him. Great group of people. And he said, come back out here and hunt anytime you want. So I just kept coming out there with my bow over and over, sitting out there trying to shoot that 30-point monster, And he said there's another guy coming from Montana that Kyle traded a mountain lion hunt with. That he's going to let him come out here and hunt in Buffalo County, and then in return he's going to take him out to the mountains and try to get a mountain lion, and with his hounds. And so he said when he was in the military, he was a forward observer, this and that. Great guy. He's like, come on out and meet him. So when he came out to hunt in Wisconsin, I met him out there. And he's like, dude, we just kicked it off. Dan was his name. We just had the best time ever. And he's like, dude, we got to get you on a mountain lion. He's like, as far as I know, we looked everywhere we could. There's never been a double amputee that's ever killed a mountain lion. He's like, we got to do it, right? And I'm always up for an adventure. I'm always down for anything. Let's just have a good time. And if it doesn't go well, we had fun doing it, And so we drove all the way out there the day after Christmas. We headed out there, and it was horrible. Snowstorm, of course, all the way across South Dakota. We finally make it out there. We have no idea where we're staying. Dan linked up with these guys on an online forum that had some land that we could hunt because we couldn't go out to his mountains because they were way too steep. So we're hunting like right on the South Dakota border in Montana, right in Powder County. And so we're hunting around there. We've never met these guys where we're staying at. It's just a very blind hunt, right? We're just gonna go wing it. So we end up in Coal Strip, Montana. We meet this guy Wes. Ends up being one of the nicest guys. He's got all of his friends there. They're more than happy and excited to help us. But I tell him, man, guys, I screwed up. I ordered my tag way too late. It didn't come in the mail. Christmas, of course. I'm like, I don't have my tag yet. I gotta go to the gas station and print out a different one. So the next morning, they head out. They're going to go start looking for tracks. I got to go to the hardware store to get my license. And I get there, and it's this whole mess, right? Because they mailed me a license. They don't want two licenses floating around out
with
there.
Two tags.
I'm like, oh, my gosh, I screwed this whole thing up. I have to sign an affidavit, do this whole thing there at the hardware store. Finally, I'm on my way out there, get the phone call. They found a track already. I scheduled 2 weeks for this hunt, So we already found a good track, good cat. We want to cut this track and see what this cat is, So they can't turn the dogs loose till I get out there with my license, So we're going, trying to get out there as fast as we can. We pull up to this farm and we meet this guy named Buckshot. We're going out by his place out there. And he's, oh yeah, the boys are back there. I heard they got a good track, this and that. Get back there, hurry up. So I'm in the truck. I'm throwing on my waders. I'm trying to get all my gear on as fast as I can. And we finally pull up. And as soon as we pull up and stop, put it in park, they cut the dogs loose, right? So I'm trying to get ready and all this. So I get ready so fast. Well, I've never been cat hunting before. It takes a good minute for them dogs to find that cat and put them up a tree. So I had plenty of time to get ready, and it took them, I don't know, maybe it was an hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that, to find the cat and get him up the tree. And a couple guys put snowshoes on and started heading up there trying to find once they had it bayed, they found the shortest route in, and it's kind of where we were sitting already. And they will snowshoed in there. Got a fire going and said, good cat, let's get Jack in here and get him on this cat. And my friends put me in a sled and started pulling me up the mountain. And I dug them on as hard as I could, and they kept pulling. And we took rangers in a little ways, but we got all the way up to the top of the divide. And it was brutal up there, but we just kept sliding across, and guys keep trading out and pulling me across there. And eventually we got under the cat, or got to the edge of this bluff. And the cat was right in front of me in the tree. And there's probably 8 guys up on this ledge with me, and the wind's blowing, the tree's swaying, and they're like, the cat's right here in this tree in front of you. And I'm like, all right. And I'm looking for this cat, and I'm looking for him, and I'm like, I don't see him. I'm like, how do I not see a 100-pound cat in this tree, you know? And they're like, it's right here in this tree. And I'm like, this tree right here? Yep, this one. And I still couldn't see the cat, and finally I seen him. And he moves around a little bit, and he's looking right at me, and I swear to God, when he looked at me, we made eye contact. I could feel where my soul sat. And he was just an incredible animal. And so this tree's swaying, and my buddy Kyle from Wisconsin hands me his AR, and he's like, here you go, get on it. And I got these shooting sticks, and I got them crossed up in front of me, and I got them dug in. And I get my rifle set up on there, and I'm trying to get lined up on this cat. And he's swaying in the tree, and I'm getting ready. I'm like, man, these shooting sticks just aren't very stable. And so all of a sudden, my buddy Brandon, he was there, and I believe in Iraq, he lost his leg below the knee. And he all of a sudden, I'm like just complaining about these shooting sticks. I can't get a good rest. So he pops his leg off below the knee. That's it next to me. I dropped the magazine well in his leg, and I pulled the trigger. It was just perfect. It was absolutely perfect. I hit the cat in the chest, in the front, and the shoulder. He drops out of the tree, takes off up the drainage, goes another 1,000 yards. And I felt so bad because I looked at my buddies, and I was like, well, boys, I guess we're moving again. I felt so bad. It could all been over right there, but I guess I wanted to pull me a little further in the sled. So we had to go up this next drainage, and he went up a tree right away again, and we got him there. And the cat's laying up there dead in the tree, and my buddies look at me and said, hey, we got you this far. You got to get him out of the tree now. And I thought for sure the only chance I had was cutting that tree down with an axe. That was the best chance I had of getting that cat out of the tree. But they crawled up there, pushed it out for me, and we got some good pictures up on the mountain and had a few beers, and it was a long slide then.
What'd that cat weigh? I'm looking at it right now.
He was about 130 pounds, 145 pounds.
That is a solid ass 130 pounds of pure muscle with claws and teeth.
It was just amazing. I was so grateful to harvest him. But when I was laying on the battlefield and I see my whole life flash before my eyes, I see me and my buddies playing baseball together, and I see me and my buddies riding around in the car or go walking out into the slough. And it didn't matter that we weren't hunting in the best slough in the whole world. It didn't matter that we weren't, playing in Yankee Stadium, and it was kind of the same thing up on that mountain. It didn't matter that we got a beautiful cat. It was more or less the experience that I got to share with the guys that I was with, and that's kind of what meant the most to me. It was a bunch of guys that went through some stuff overseas together, and here we are, up on a mountain celebrating, what we set out to do that day. And there was so much adversity in our way, just the elevation that we had to climb, trying to find a good cat, the conditions, there's so much adversity in the hunting world that we face every single day between wind and weather and everything else, let alone not being able to be as mobile as you want to be, and to have these guys, up on the mountain with me and defeating all that adversity and that resilience, kind of once you're sitting on top of that mountain, you kind of think to yourself, what can I do in this world?
When it looked at you, what was that like? Was that eerie feeling? Because I've never seen a cat out in the wild.
Yeah, it was super eerie because you know that is the
Right.
baddest creature out in those woods, you know, and he
Yeah.
knows it too. And I was just lucky I had the
Right.
gun.
Yeah.
And you know what's really amazing is you hit on what's important. It's not about killing stuff. It's being with your friends and your loved ones and the freedom that you fought for. So we all have that ability to do that because we're very fortunate as Americans. We every day we go to bed and we should thank God that we're Americans every day because of the freedoms we have to get to do stuff. Because there's a lot of places they can't do what you got to do. Just very
Yeah,
blessed.
I mean, just to even have the right to be able to have as many guns in the safe as you want, so you can take whatever shotgun you want out to go shoot whatever species of ducks that you want to shoot, or whatever big game that you want to hunt that day. We have that privilege, we have that ability to do those things, and we don't have to ask somebody permission to go out and hunt. We can just do those things, obviously when they're in season and whatnot. But we're lucky to have that ability to have the freedom to go and do those things, and we have the rights
You
that
can
we
just
do.
go a fine line. Them poor bastards in Canada, they can't even have a pistol.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of places they can't have long rifles anymore. We're very
Yeah, I mean
fortunate.
that's a scary thought. I mean, if you look at where the world's at and where it's going and everything going on in Ukraine and everywhere else, and in history, you've heard it before that there's a reason that a lot of people don't look favorably upon invading this place. We're armed to the teeth. I think they say something like the Wisconsin deer hunters is like one of the largest armies in the whole world, size wise, if you consider them one.
Well,
We're just we. There's still this country is still full of so many incredible people that believe in this place, and like for me, for instance, I still today see so much in this country we're fighting for, and I don't think there's a better place in the world than America, and we can't go any further west. So we just gotta fix what we got here and work on the things that we don't believe are
our
right here.
forefathers were geniuses.
For the most part, they did miss.
Yeah.
They missed the Senate term
limits.
That was the only thing they missed.
And Congress term limits.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. Congress.
I don't think people lived that
Right,
long back
yeah,
then.
Exactly.
People didn't want to be a fucking politician back then. There was no money in it. You were leaving your job to volunteer your time to make the country a better place. And they used the brightest people because most of the people that were in Congress then or Senate were people that could afford to leave their business, which was successful, and be gone for 2 months. Well, nowadays you got people going on there, they're just born into it and they go one generation to another, and it's all about being wealthy. But man, they're everything other than term limits, the right to bear arms, the electoral college and stuff. Those were things that were really well thought out when they did that.
Was the electoral college wasn't then though? Was it?
It had to be. I think it's been in the Constitution.
Ooh, I'd have to look. I'd have to look that
But
one.
I do believe this country does need a sense of like national service, that everybody has to serve in some capacity. And I think that there's a lot of opportunities to just make our country an incredible place. I mean, you could serve on a parks committee in your community and serve, 24 hours a year, one day a year, total of time that we could just commit to this country. We could commit to the wetlands. That could be your thing that you commit to, that you spend your time on in this country, and you do that for 2 years, one day a month. And if everybody did that, just think of how incredible this place would be, and what a small sacrifice it would be for all of us.
And then it would give people the right to bitch more. You know what I mean? Like it's so frustrating when you hear somebody complaining. I'm on school board here. And it's so frustrating when, and we don't get a whole lot of complaints, but whenever you do, it's coming from the people that never sacrificed any of their time or they're not on anything. They're just, they just sit around and kind of bitch about what other people decide. Well, go run. If you've got all these great ideas, go run.
I don't think there's anybody that wouldn't disagree that whenever somebody has a little skin in the game, it means a little more to them, And I think that if everybody had to contribute to the country in some aspect of, there's a million things that you could pick for national service of some sort. And, if everybody committed to doing a little bit of something, I just think that what this country could be with such a small sacrifice.
We have a park here, and Jeff was mayor for a long time of our small town. Everybody bitches about the park and the cemetery not being kept up. But when you look at all the stuff that the city employees have to do, and we don't have a whole lot of guys that work for our city in the first place, the cemetery is kind of the last thing because it wasn't even our property to begin with. It fell into the city's lap of, hey, by the way, now you got all these acres you got to maintain. But
and the people hanging out there aren't really complaining.
Right, yeah,
much.
no, they don't care at all. They haven't said one complaint. But people will complain about the park being too grown up. Well,
mow it.
I mean, go mow it if it bothers you that bad. It ain't that big.
You don't have a.
But it is it's not that it's the city's responsibility. It's our responsibility. It's our community. And if we don't do it, then we have to spend the tax dollars to be able to have it done. And so you have to sacrifice one way or the other. And that's what I mean is I think about if you and 10 of your friends of the dads in your class got together and said, we're going to do our 1 day or half of our 1 day of national service. And we're going to go put in 6 hours today at the park and we're going to build out the pavilion, and just start building it. And that was your yearly project of you and those guys. I mean, you have a brand new pavilion done through your national service and it made your community better. And, it's as simple as that, stuff
People
like that.
want to bitch, but they don't want to do nothing. I was mayor for a long time. Excuse me. And that was one of the biggest things I'd get people bitch at me about. They's like, well, we don't do nothing to the cemetery. Well, first of all, our small town is a lot like a lot of small towns. We've had a huge loss in sales tax. People don't understand that. They think the city can print money like the federal government. Like the federal government can do anything they want to. They just print more money. Well, a small town in West Texas can't do that. Our cemetery does not look good. I don't have anybody that's in my immediate family that's buried at that cemetery. Nobody. At all. I don't go to the cemetery ever. I drive by it every day going to the lodge. But there are people that's got their family members there, but they're not going to spend 15 minutes to go to their 8x8 plot where their loved one's at and clean it or do whatever it needs to do. My wife's dad is buried at a cemetery 20 miles from here. Michelle goes over there 4 times a year. She takes flowers, does whatever it is. They do a pretty good job of upkeep. But the people in Knox City don't realize if everybody really wanted to contribute, if every person's water bill they'd add an extra $100 a year on, they could afford to have someone pay to take care of the cemetery. They don't want to do that, though. That's not worth their $100 skin in the game. It never, ever would pass because they don't want to do it. And it's that way everywhere. Cemeteries, parks, we spend $15,000 a year on a city pool that we lose. The city of Knox City loses $15,000 a year every year on a city pool. Every single year, but we provide it so the kids will have a place. People don't realize how much it costs to keep a city running, no matter how big it is, but you're going to have to put some skin in the game, like you said. And people don't want to do that. And the people that bitch never want to run for stuff. And I'm assuming every small town is like the one we live in. I spent my time, I was mayor, I was judge, I've been president of of Little League, Michelle's been Booster Club. We've done our time. Our kids are raised now. It's young people's times. But people do not want to volunteer to help. They just want to bitch. And we need more people in our country to take pride. Like you said, the National Day. I think every kid, I did not serve in the military, but I think every person that graduates high school today should have to do a 2-year commitment to our federal government. Go to boot camp, learn a skill that you can do 2 years and you're out and you can go on with your life. I think our country would be a whole lot better off if we did that. First of all, for the 10, 15% of kids that are going to go to college and do something with their life that are overachievers, that those kids probably don't need to do that. But for the 85% of the rest of the United States, it would do you some good to learn discipline at an early age. And I really believe that. Out of my 3 boys, Andy's the only one of them that did not need to go to the military. Andy was disciplined and done everything he was supposed to do. Zach and Payne is in the military. Zach would have probably been better off to go to the military for 2 years too.
Yeah, I mean, the military is just an incredible place. I mean, just going through basic training, the things that you learn there, just about yourself, will change your life immensely. They break you down and make you look at your weaknesses and admit them, and then all you have to do is start working on those to become a better teammate. But admitting that you're weak sometimes is a really hard thing to do. But until you identify those weak points, you're never going to get better. And if it's discipline or it's this or it's that, they're going to identify it and say, hey, this is where you need to get better. And by the time you leave that place, your chest is so far out in the air and you're so confident in yourself and you're willing to go do anything. You put yourself through the test and you just leave there thinking you're really something. And then you get to your unit and then you realize that you got a long ways to go yet. But it was going through the military was honestly one of the best experiences of my life. I met some incredible people, but really what it did is it really opened my eyes up to the world, and it gave me an opportunity to really see what was really out there and the opportunities and possibilities, and it taught me really how tough I was and resilient. And as people, that's what we need to go learn those things about ourselves, or we fall into this pattern every day of getting really comfortable and complacent, doing the same things every day. And before you know it, our life is getting closer and closer to the end, and we realize that we really need to do something, and it's too late,
And I think it would give young people a chance to see how blessed they really were to be born in America. I mean,
yeah,
you're not in Afghanistan. You're not an 8-year-old trying to figure it out over there.
I don't know if we talked about it last time. We talked about me the firearm safety thing, me starting that up with seeing those kids. So when I was in Afghanistan, we seen some kids get wounded over there. They stepped on an IED and they brought them to our base. And I remember, those kids getting put on the chopper, and the one kid was lifeless, and the other one was pretty beat up and missing a limb and stuff. And it really bothered me that they got wrapped up in something that they had no business being involved in, And I thought those kids never had an opportunity to make a life for themselves. They never had a chance to go out and do anything with their lives, And I said, when I get home, I'm going to make sure that those kids' lives don't go to waste, that they had some kind of purpose in life, and I'm going to try to live out a purpose through those, or for those kids, And I didn't know what that was going to be. I ended up getting wounded, flown to San Antonio, rehabbing down there, and then moving back up here to Minnesota. When I got up here to Minnesota, my love for the outdoors is something that not only healed me after getting wounded, that's my place that I chose to heal, but it's where I grew up as well. I mean, when I was a kid, there was nowhere else that I wanted to be than the outdoors. One of the most impactful experiences in my life, or rewarding experiences in my life, or achieving moments of my life was getting my firearm safety certificate. I mean, I can go get a big game license now. It was a big deal moment for me in my life, and I wanted to be a part of that with kids, again someday. And so when I moved back here to Minnesota, that's what I did. I went and got licensed to go through the DNR to go start teaching kids firearm safety, and I joined the team here in my community, and eventually led the group for a long time that was teaching firearm safety. And when I was doing that, we had some kids that we typically had it on a Saturday, but some kids had a science fair. So we took a couple kids out on a Friday, and there was another school out there doing trap shooting. And the Cleveland kids then said, "Hey, we want to do that." And I said, "Well, let's get it done." So I called a friend that was on the school board. They put it on the agenda. And next thing you know, I'm at a school board meeting. A trap team gets approved, and they're going, "Well, who's going to coach this thing?" And I kind of realize everybody's looking at me, and I go, "Well, guess I'm coaching a high school trap shooting team now, And it gave me an opportunity to spend time with kids, help them realize how lucky they are to have the opportunities they do, make sure that they're shooting, that they know that they can shoot as high as they want in this world, that they don't have to go to school to be a sheetrocker if they don't want to. They can go to school you can go to space if you want to go to space, man. You just have to make that decision, commit to it, and actually do it. You can do whatever you want in this world. It's just, and you have to go out there and find out things that you don't want to do too. I think that was one of the biggest things that I learned after being wounded, was all the things in my life that I didn't want to do for a long time. And I've kind of found the things that I want to do in life, and it takes a long time to do that. But coaching those kids gave me the opportunity to spend some time with them, and it gave me a chance it gave me a sense of healing when I could coach these kids and think about those kids in Afghanistan that I seen that got wounded, and to think that my school has a trap shooting team now because of the sacrifice that those kids
Was that
made.
pretty common over there to see kids that just kind of stepped in the wrong spot?
No, not typically. Where we were at was really the heart of the Taliban. So the people that were in those communities were very familiar with the people that were the Taliban that were there, So they had a very good rapport of don't let anybody hang out in that area. Typically not having IEDs hot if we weren't around, and things like that was my perception of it. And but no, typically whenever you seen a stream of children and women leaving the backside of a village, you pretty much knew that was going to be going on in the front, and that's why everybody's getting out of
So
town.
they would know. Taliban would come in, women and children would all leave, and then
they'd say, "Hey, yeah, the Americans are coming. You guys, you might want to
Sneak
get
out
out
the
of here.
back. I was watching 13 Hours the other day, and that was one of the things, you know, they're driving, trying to get to the ambassador or whatever, and it's like they had no idea who was on their side or who wasn't. Because it's just like everybody over there has a gun, and like they were looking for one division that was supposed to be friendly, but they're like, I don't fucking know if they're on our side or not.
Did that movie piss you off?
Yeah, and we had a lot of different angles of that too. Not only did we have the Taliban to worry about, but also we had the Afghan National Army with us all the time too, you know. And those guys aren't vetted, you know. They're just people that volunteered to join. But if you were the Taliban, you'd probably want some of your guys to join the National Army to see what's going on inside, you know. And that was always a concern. You know, we lived in the same compound with them, you know, and at the same time, there's a lot of what we call blue on green going on there too, where they, you know, the Afghan National Army would turn on the Americans, you know, and you know, we're arming them, giving them weapons, and walking with them. And it's a different situation that you're put in, you know, and there's times, you know, where, you know, when we first got there, you know, we're going to buildings and clearing them, and after a while, you know, and you've seen your friends get banged up and stuff, you're kind of telling them, hey man, you go in that building, you can go in there for your country, you know?
Yeah, that's one of those things, man. Like, we're the world's police, and it's our, you know, we're fighting this war for them, just like you said. It's like, why should we be the one to go clear that building? It's your country.
Did you like that movie?
Yeah.
It was a good movie.
It pissed me off.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Made me madder than hell. It was a great movie. The movie was good. It just pisses me off the way they've covered up all that shit. And it makes me mad the way we use our soldiers, our politicians. It makes me so fucking pissed. And it just, all over, just makes me mad that we continue to do this over and over and over. And I want to know when we started doing this, because I don't think we did it in World War I, and I don't think we did it in World War II. Because in World War II, we didn't have rules of engagement.
Well, they did. They had rules of engagement in World War II.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It was just you had to define your enemy had a uniform.
Pretty clear enemy.
Right.
Well, yeah, we were going to kill them motherfuckers.
Well, they had a you could tell who the bad guy was.
Right. But nowadays, but since the Korean War, we've changed that in Vietnam. You know, but
Vietnam really changed just the landscape of war and how the whole world looked at war in a sense. And really, Vietnam, those guys probably took those fighting tactics from, you know, the Taliban, who have been doing the guerrilla warfare for all of time. You know, I mean, that's kind of how Afghanistan has been, as a tribal warfare, and you know, people can learn a lot of stuff from those guys. But that's what kind of Vietnam was like, the same thing, that tribal warfare of pockets of people, and as well as a fighting force. You know, and Iraq and Afghanistan was brutal because you have a civilian population weaved in with the enemy, and the enemy is part of the civilian population at the same time if they want to be.
Yeah, the Afghan war, people forget that Russia fought Afghanistan for a decade. And we were fun.
Yeah, that day that I got wounded, the first IED I found that day, that berm that I was in was pushed up to fight the Russians off of.
Really? So it had been there that long?
Yeah, I mean, just they built a berm there, and I mean, it's just, you know, they can't really move it. Right. You know, I mean, it's so hard to move soil. They don't have equipment and stuff, so once it's there, it's not really going to move. You know.
Was it still capable of, or just the berm was there, or did they put that out?
Yeah, it was probably like a 6 or 8 foot berm. You know, they're just on the edge of town, so that they had something to fight off of, to put something between the north and their village, you know, something for them to some cover.
I went turkey hunting in Tennessee, and on one of the properties there was a Civil War skirmish line built out of like rocks and stuff. It was one of the most surreal experiences that I've ever had, because like on either side of it, there's kind of a creek on one side, and then there's like this big open field in the other, and it's like, dude, there's a lot of guys that met their end right here on this line that I'm standing on.
Yep. It's war's kind of turned into kind of like how people do it online now. You know, it's kind of, you take your pop shots and you run, you know, and that's kind of what war's turned into. You know, you put things in that you don't even have to be there for, like IEDs and stuff, you know, not where it's like, we're going to go line up on the battlefield and shoot each other. You know, I think there's a very fine middle ground there, you know, and I feel like World War II is probably the what, you know, I don't want to say the greatest war, because there's no such thing as a great war, but it's probably the most fair fought war of our time, or, you know, of our era, you know.
I would agree with that 100%, because World War I was a lot of trench warfare, but they brought in a bunch of mustard gas and stuff like that. And World War II was basically we fought their tanks against our tanks, our fighters against their fighters. Man fought man, and since then it's not like that at all. It's
just kind of a full-out brawl. Yeah.
What's crazy is the gentlemanly way the English fought in the 16 and 1700s.
Everybody lines up.
We just line up and fucking start shooting.
Civil War.
Well, Civil War they still did more commando type stuff than they did. But the Indians taught the British that they were doing it the wrong way, and the colonists, and we fought more ghetto commando type against them. But they just wanted to line up in red uniforms and do it as a gentleman. Them and the French killed thousands or millions of each other every year doing that shit.
Do you guys ever think a nuke will go off again?
Yes. A suitcase one will.
What do you mean?
They've got suitcase nuclear bombs that are not real big, but would knock out probably 5 miles of a city block. Is that right on about how big they are? Or are they bigger than that?
Oh, I have no idea. I try to stay away from bombs now.
Had a bad experience.
I think that a suitcase nuclear weapon is good for about 5 miles, maybe. And I think that one day we'll have some jackass terrorist will do it, or some anti-American ex-dipshit that thinks he's going to change the world, Timothy McVeigh type deal, will do something like that.
EMPs worry me.
You don't think we'll send it?
No, I don't.
I don't know if.
I don't know that we would ever. I'm not going to say ever because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't think China really wants to fight with us in a war, and I don't think Russia does either. I could see some country like Iran or Iraq doing it. Hey, if it's up to me right now, fucking nuke the shit out of Iraq one day, or Iran. I can't remember which one. Is it Iran that we're having so much trouble with right now? Fucking it's Iran. Fucking wipe them fuckers out. Turn that whole area into glass would be okay with me. But take all of our troops out of the Middle East forever. Bring them home. Glass that whole fucking area over there and never fuck with them again. Don't buy oil from them. Don't ever do anything with them again. Treat them like third world bastards is what I would do. But we won't do that. But I don't think our government would do it unless someone dropped one on us or done one. But I think that if we have one, it will be one of those suitcase nuclear weapons that the Russians have lost that they don't know where they're at.
I think that's probably a fair assessment, because I don't think anybody has that. We have the ability to shoot a lot of stuff down. We'll be able to detect a lot of things like that. I don't think anybody would really want to shoot anything towards us. I just don't think it's in their best interest.
No, it's not.
Be a lot back, But I could definitely see something like that happening. But that's one of the things in this world that really makes me super uneasy. I just don't even like the fact that they're out there, But I understand why they are and the power that they can bring. But something like that would be.
What about somebody like Pakistan shooting on one off in India?
Yeah, I think that's something more realistic of when you're going to see a nuke go off. This whole Israel thing makes me super nervous too. There's a lot of guys over there, saber rattling right now, and there's some stuff that's going to happen. Israel seems like they're pretty set on going ahead and going forward with taking out Hamas and that, and that's a rough area right now. It's a bad place to be.
Yeah, I would not feel comfortable with my family being in Israel anywhere right now. I would want them home. Those people. What's funny is when you watch the media, and the media is so torn because most of America is on Israel's side, but we got some people that are on the Palestinian side, and they talk about Israel's trying to take all the land and stuff. Have you seen a map of the fucking Muslim world compared to Israel? Mm-mm. Israel's a fucking like a little. If you look at a map, it's a very minute, tiny part of the whole planet. They're surrounded by Muslim countries, And
that's where they want them to go in the first place. That's kind of the spot they say, we'll kind of put you here. And, it's tough because I think it's as simple. And I mean, this isn't my words. I've heard it and it stuck with me and resonated with me. And I don't remember who said it, but it was simple as if Israel stopped shooting today, they would be wiped off the map.
Yeah.
And if it was the other way around, there would be peace. If they just stopped shooting at Israel, there would be peace. And it's as simple as that. Israel's not the agitator, and it's a really bad situation, and I just really hope that we don't get involved with it.
We're going to, because there's too much money over there, and that's what it's about. It's money. you ever heard the story about what Black Jack Pershing did to the Muslims?
Yeah, I did. Is that the one with the pig's blood?
Yeah, they set up I guess it was a firing squad, and he had 12 Muslim mercenaries there, and they dipped them in pig blood, and they shot 11 of them in the guts and let them bleed to death, and one of them let go and said, if we have any trouble out of you, we're going to do the same thing to you that we did to them. They got the note on that, and they didn't have problems with Muslims for a long time.
Yeah, that was like down in the Caribbean or something like that, wasn't it?
I think it was over in on the Barbary Coast, I think.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yep.
But if you read back on any of Thomas Jefferson's writings from the late 1700s, they had a lot of problems with Muslims in the 1700s too. A lot of them said they were the most vile, vicious, evil people in the whole world, and I don't think that's changed. The problem is they're outnumbering everybody now. Every place in the world, if you look at Tripoli, if you look at Benghazi, if you look at all of those places, those were thriving, nice places in the early 1900s. They were Christian countries or Christian cities. I don't know much about history over there, but they were really nice places. But once the Muslims come in and take over, they turn them into shitholes. And that's the same thing you can say for Dearborn, Michigan. You can say for that area, the little Somalia in Minneapolis. All of those places are that way.
No, the world's definitely changing, and we need to figure out what's how we're going to move forward and how we're going to be able to all exist, and like this is what America is supposed to be, is a place where everybody can come together with their own ideas and worship whoever they want to worship, and as long as you're not just shoving it in anybody else's face or trying to push it upon anybody or anything like that. I mean, it's as simple as I don't want to have problems with anybody else, but at the same time, leave me alone. It goes both ways, but I just feel like right now at this point in time, I feel like we're moving further from peace all the time.
Yeah, 100%.
It's a terrible world. When the Christian countries or United States is a Christian country. Now, we've got a lot of different religions in here that aren't Christian, and the Christians can get along, or the people that have spun off Christians, most of those can get along because it doesn't teach hatred. The Mormons were a pretty wicked bunch, and they killed a lot of people to do that, to push their agenda at times.
There's plenty of Christian.
Yes, there are. But the average Christian person believes in forgiving and get along with your neighbor and stuff. The other religion doesn't believe in that. They want to kill all the Christians. And that's where we've come into a crossroads like that, is you've got some people that are really out there that they think their reward is to kill Christians, and they're going to get 72 virgins and live happily ever after. Well, it's hard to sit down and negotiate with someone that thinks that way. They don't think the same way we do.
And they're so firm in their beliefs.
Yes.
You're not going to move them off it. That's the problem.
No, and that's not going to change, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse. The Catholics, I mean, how many people have died over the Catholic religion over the years?
A bunch.
I mean, that's pretty, so it's where we are, and it's a shame that the United States uses our soldiers as pawns in this game for politicians and for money. And that
we'll do whatever we're asked. It's I mean, that's what we're here to do. We're volunteers for our country, and I just hope that we don't find ourselves in a situation like Vietnam where we're blaming our soldiers for actions that they were asked to do.
Yeah.
We police them too much, though.
I think it was Marcus Luttrell at one time said, I think he was talking about ISIS when that first popped up, and he said, "You want to take care of ISIS?" He said, "You send my boys over here, take the chains off, and we'll get it done in no time."
Yeah,
that's exactly. But that's what we should do. We shouldn't have to go to conflict with these wars and all these rules of engagement. We shouldn't have them. If we're going to go over and we're going to take over this and conquer and do this, and we need to freaking do it. I mean, we did that in Japan. I mean, they hit us first. Has the United States ever started a war? No, we've had some proxy wars we're doing, like this shit in Ukraine and crap, but have we actually ever lobbed the first attack on anybody? I don't think we have.
It's not really our MO, I guess.
No, and I don't know why anybody would want to fuck with us. I mean, that's like you're fucking with a rich guy that can whip your ass.
Yeah, I mean, are we Jake Paul?
Yeah,
there you go, Paul.
God, that's embarrassing to think of for us.
What were the rules of engagement whenever you were over there?
It was a really tough time when I was there. Basically, if they dropped their rifles, that was pretty much the end of the fight. They could, so a lot of times, you see a haystack and you think, I bet there's a rifle in there, and that guy could be farming. He feels like it's going to work for him. He'll pick up that rifle. If not, he's going to keep stacking hay, and there's not a whole lot you could do about it.
Jesus. We're like,
We couldn't fire unless we were fired upon. If there's a guy running off the rifle until he shoots at you.
that's it. Like, you can see the rifle, and until he cracks that first one off, it's just, we just gotta wait.
And if you better be certain too, because there's always somebody watching. There's always something, there's always eyes on, and if you don't follow the rules of engagement, you will find yourself.
See, and that's bullshit.
Who would be watching? Would there be like drones overhead or what?
ISR, yeah. There's always a blimp in the air watching us patrol, and there's usually there's planes flying over, there's helicopters, there's satellite. There's always something. Somebody's always watching.
So when you were wounded, were they able to like get help from above, or like they saw everything happen from above, basically?
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure it was all recorded somewhere, and I've never seen it. Don't really care to see it. But yeah, I'm sure it's out there. I'm sure the Taliban has video of it too,
So from the time, I'm sure time kind of was a slippery thing at that point in your life, but whenever you stepped on the IED and had everything, kind of go off around you, how long was it until they were choppering you out?
Yeah. So, everything had to be perfect that day for me to still be here. From the time I stepped on the IED, me laying in that crater, my guys getting to me, tourniqueting my limbs off, while the other guys were trying to keep the Taliban back. It was 36 minutes, and I'm so lucky that it was as fast as it was. There was another unit that had hit an IED a few clicks east of us, and they had some guys banged up, but nobody, extremely wounded, nobody urgent, And so when they heard that my 9 line come across, being called up as a quadruple amputee, they just diverted then and went over and picked me up first. And if it wouldn't have been for that, I didn't have another 2 minutes, before I got put on that chopper. If I wouldn't have got the fluids I got when I did, I would not be here today.
So you were 120 seconds, 120 seconds away, basically.
I was at the end of my life when I heard that chopper coming. And when I heard that chopper coming, I reached down with everything I had inside me to draw in one more breath, because I had to. Those guys have been working on me out in that field for so long. They risked their lives to get to mine, running, dodging IEDs to get over to me. And for me not to give my absolute most and dig as deep as I possibly could in that moment would have been an absolute would have made me the worst friend in the world and worst teammate in the world, and would have been horrible, to try to. I wouldn't have lived with it the rest of my life, obviously, but just looking back at it now, I'm extremely thankful with myself for the choice that I made that day to dig as deep as I did, to draw on that one more breath, so those guys gave them a chance to get me off the battlefield that day, because just as much as it would have been horrible to die that day, my friends don't have to live with that day of me dying the rest of their lives either.
So what is it like knowing that you're drawing your last breath if something doesn't change drastically?
Well, when I was laying there on the ground, I had an epiphany, like with God in a sense, I knew whether I lived or I died, I was going to be okay. I accepted death laying there on the battlefield. Obviously, I didn't want to die, but you don't have any legs, you don't have any arms, you can't do anything for yourself. You're kind of taking fate out of your own hands, literally, and you have to kind of turn everything over at that time, and you have to believe in other people, just like you need somebody to believe in you at times, you have to believe in other people at times too. And I had to believe that those guys were going to do everything they could to get me off the battlefield that day. You have to fully, turn that over to them, and you have to find that peace from God above, and you have to accept the fact that today might be your last.
So you found peace in that moment.
Absolutely, absolutely, because you can die panicking, or you can die in peace. It's up to you.
Right. Was there ever a time where you were panicking?
Yeah, I mean, when I first sat up, because I was trying to get out of there and my right leg was gone. Uh, yeah, I was more like, holy, that thing is. I'm in way worse shape than I thought. I thought my arms were jacked up, and I thought there was somebody else there with me, because there was so much blood, and that was kind of why I was like, oh, I can't all be mine, because I'm out then. And yeah, I mean that was a scary moment, but your buddies are pretty much telling you to live, or they're not letting you try. They're doing everything they can in their power to keep you awake and coherent as well.
Did they give you morphine on the battlefield?
I didn't have I from the time that I stepped on until the time that I was in an induced coma, I never received anything for pain.
Ooh. What's that like?
Uh, it's just a general hurt. It hurts. I mean, you're in pain. It hurts everywhere. But at the same time, you don't really focus on one spot
Just
where
because
it hurts.
everything
It just
hurts,
kind of
everything's a
hurts.
problem.
Yeah, it just kind of hurts. And honestly, pain was the last thing I was focused on. Pain isn't really a real thing. It's a thought in a sense. You can make pain go away in your mind. You can ignore it. People live through pain every day, and that's kind of why I really wasn't focused on pain. There's bullets flying around. There's chopper coming in, dust flying everywhere. You're trying to focus on trying to get off the battlefield alive more than you are the pain. You're focused on breathing more than you are the pain, because if you don't focus on breathing, you're not going to. So you need to focus on those things, and that's what I did. You're focusing on the rotor slowing down and collecting your thoughts and preparing yourself to go into the operating room, and you're doing those things instead of focusing on the pain, because that can always be dealt with later.
Whew.
Army doctors are true heroes.
Well,
They are, they are, and some true heroes to me are pilots. Those helicopter pilots. They have some incredible abilities. Not only do they get us on and off the battlefield without having to walk across IED lands, they can haul us around. They can provide cover fire for us, which they did a ton. And they also pick us up on our worst days, and they come into the worst areas, and they do it with a smile, and they're incredibly grateful to do it for you.
So what do they try to do? They just try to push the enemy back as far as they can to safely land a helicopter?
Yeah, just trying to lay down as much cover fire as you can, so they can't try to shoot that bird down, and trying to keep their heads down, make it uncomfortable for them to shoot, and it's a big target out there.
Yeah, I mean, it's sitting right there.
Yeah, and you're always worried about RPGs and other things, but they always try to get a gun team rolling with them, so they know whenever medevac choppers come in, the Taliban knows whenever they see a medevac chopper that there's probably an Apache right behind it.
I read a statistic one time, and I can't remember. It was the lifespan of a chopper pilot during Vietnam, and you'd be surprised.
Yeah,
it was terrible. It was absolutely one of the worst jobs when it come for the death rate. It's terrible.
Yeah, it kind of started out. I have a good friend that was a pilot during Vietnam, and I got to take him on a helicopter ride here this spring. He wanted to go on a Huey again, and I got lined up for him to get on one. And we went for a ride again, and he was so happy that he got to go on a ride on the Huey again. And I was so thankful that my last ride wasn't a medevac anymore. And we had a good time out there. But he said when he was getting in, he ended up being a pilot because he thought that if he kept taking all this training and for how long it took to become a pilot, hopefully maybe the war would be over by the time he started flying. And he said he ended up flying, and he wrecked a bunch of birds over there. He crashed all kinds of stuff. And he said when he first were trying to become a pilot, you had to have all these credentials and meet all these standards, and by the end of it all, if you could say helicopter, you were in.
That was the standard.
Yeah, pretty much. They take anybody and everybody else would be willing to give it a shot to try to fly one of those things. They give them a shot.
What were your thoughts on the way that we exited Afghanistan?
Oof. Yeah, I remember immediately when it happened, the local paper called me and said, "Do you want to make a statement?" And I said, "No, I'm good." On the first time, and a year later, I ended up making a year after Afghanistan. But I didn't want to go down in history in the local paper for saying some stuff that maybe I shouldn't have said. I was pretty upset about the way the whole thing went down, in a really weird and twisted way. I envy the Taliban in some ways. They're free men that took back their own country. They ran one of the world's greatest superpowers out of their own backyard. Sheer resilience and in ways there is ways to look at them and say, oh, wow, that's impressive in a sense. But the way that our country handled it was absolutely horrendous. Every other war that we fought, that we ever won, we kept bases there. I mean, we invested 20 years in how much treasure, blood, and everything else to just decide one day to skip town with our tail between our legs. That ain't who we are. And I mean, once you just stay there and fight just to save face in a sense, and as a values and a morals thing, I mean, we hadn't taken a casualty there in how many years? We had all the infrastructure built. We had all the equipment there. Everything was already done and ready to go. Why didn't we just help them continue to build I mean, it's going to take generations to create a better country. It's just not going to happen by putting one man in charge and saying all the corruption's gone, all this is gone, everything is fixed. I think the guys and gals. I mean, we had like a battalion in Afghanistan. We could have rotated people through there essentially as like a new duty station, and just use it as a training ground and kept peace in the Middle East in one of the worst places ever. And I just really think for how much of us we were truly sacrificing and the money that we were truly spending on being there, to pull out in the fashion that we did and to telegraph it to them and basically hand them the keys on the way out was a really bad choice to make.
I just can't believe that we left everything for them.
It's we armed the entire Afghan National Army with M16s and machine guns and everything else, just like we did with we were fighting the AKs that we gave them against the Mujahideen, and it's scary to think that one day that my kids may be fighting the weapons that I gave them in a sense,
There ain't nothing stupider than the United States fucking government. I'm telling you right now, there ain't nobody in the world's going to go borrow fucking money that you don't have to give to someone that hates you or even someone that likes you. I mean, if I can't feed my family, I damn sure ain't going to go to the bank and borrow money to give to my neighbor whose kids are hungry. I'm going to feed my own family. Or I'm not going to fucking give weapons and shit. Blow all that shit up. That'd have been a good place for a nuclear bomb. Put all of our shit in one big pile in the middle of that airport, get on a plane, fly off, push a button and blow all that shit where it's just ashes and glass.
Well, at the time it made sense. If we armed the Taliban or Mujahideen at the time, we didn't have to worry about the Russians going in there and we didn't have to get involved and, they could fight them. Well, we didn't think that, years later, 40 years later, whatever it is, that we would be, fighting essentially our own weaponry that we gave them to fight the Russians off of, and, how many other places in the world have we armed that we don't even know about that are, those weapons are now being used against us.
Everywhere in the world. I have a hard time believing that Barack Obama isn't running things. And I have a hard time believing that Barack Obama did not leave all them weapons for the Taliban because he is a Muslim sympathizer.
Yeah, I have no idea on any of that, honestly. But, it's just, it's a scary thought, I think we need to really think. I don't think we think it far enough ahead.
Right.
I think we're just trying to solve problems right now with a quick, fast, easy solution. And that makes sense. Go ahead and do it. What could go wrong? And 20 years later, we're going, man, that was a really bad choice.
Nobody in their right mind would have left all that shit in Afghanistan. Nobody. Helicopters, all kinds of shit. Nobody would do that shit. Take that shit and start flying it home. Why? I mean,
well, they'll just buy more.
Yeah, but we shouldn't leave it for someone else. I understand us buying.
I agree. I mean, I'm just saying that's their motto.
Yeah, they're just
is we'll just buy more,
and let one of your other buddies in the military contract business get richer so he can give you a cutback. I don't trust politicians.
It's easier to leave too if you take nothing with you.
No shit. Yeah, it is. But I mean, you imagine that mindset with any business. Oh, we just built a bridge here. We're going to leave all the dozers and everything. We'll just go down the road and start again. Nobody does that with anything. And I hate to tell you this, but military is a business, and it's a big business, biggest business in the world. And government spending is out of control. But that is you could not do the things that our government has done in the last 3 years unless you intentionally were trying to kill our country, from our border policies to everything.
The military's biggest problem facing them right now is recruitment.
Yeah. Who wants to be part of that?
Well, the whole thing is when you asked me to join, I was a kid. I watched the towers fall.
Yep.
You know, I watched those guys going into Iraq. I watched the. I'll never forget it. I don't even remember his name, but I remember this Ranger from Minnesota that was the first Minnesotan killed in action in Iraq. You know, I remember seeing that come across the screen as a kid. You know, and then as I got older, YouTube came out, and I remember watching these guys fighting on the rooftops of Iraq. You know, and I was like, man, that's some men's work, right? I mean, that's not something anybody's willing to do. You know, I had an urge to go do it. I was like, I kind of want to be with those guys. You know, and you know, you watch this go on, but now you're sitting here going, what would inspire a kid today to want to go fight the fights that we're fighting? You know, and you know, that's something you really have to ask yourself is when we make the decisions that we make. You know,
do you think that we'll ever see another draft if things continue to decline the way that we're seeing it? Because I'm looking at it right now. It's 25% from its target. That was in 2023.
That's bad. That's bad because you realize that's a whole year of people that are not going to be trained, you know, to teach a younger generation. Right. You know, we just keep falling further and further away from the point, you know. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think about a draft. I don't know. I don't think there'll ever be a draft. I really don't. I just don't know how. You think these guys are so worried about their jobs out in Washington D.C.? If you vote to kick the draft off again, how are these guys ever going to get their jobs again? Huh? Keep jobs
by cheating.
You know, they'd probably rather see the military fail than
do a draft
and still then do a draft. Yeah, because their whole constituency would turn on them.
Well, yeah.
Think about these moms on social media now. If your kid got drafted, could you imagine that?
TikTok would be on fire with upset moms.
Oh yeah.
Which I mean,
it would be bad, and the military doesn't want that either. You know, one of the things that I think my generation hopefully will go down as is, you know, we fought the longest war in U.S. history was an all volunteer army.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, but you know, there was that call to action of 9/11. You know, we haven't had that.
Absolutely. It was the Pearl Harbor. It was the, you know.
Yeah. So. When, and I might have asked you this on the last one, but when does the pain set in? You know, you say you hurt all over, but like when does the acute pain of your arms and your legs and just everything kind of kick in?
Not even when I really woke up in the ICU. Not even really then. You know, it probably took, I mean, I was pretty heavily sedated, you know. I remember coming out of my first couple surgeries. There was a lot of that stuff in the ICU. Honestly, the day that I was blown up was a lot more clear than the following few days after in the ICU, you know. I remember it just felt like a lot of in and out of surgery. But it was the most uncomfortable I always felt like I needed to readjust myself when I was laying in the bed, you know, like you'd be sick of laying in one spot. But it kind of turned into I kind of learned that I was just sore all over. So it wasn't necessarily the one spot that I was laying in. It was every spot that I was laying in, you know. And it was just kind of it was just a lot of pain all the time, kind of everywhere. Generally, my back was so sore. You know, my whole pelvis was sore, you know. My shoulders were sore. I mean, I was blown all over the place. Shoulders broken, you know. But I think when I really started thinking about pain, the worst pain that I had was once I started getting skin graft. And they started those donor sites, man. When they started putting my arms really back together, that's when I really had the pain. I could still take myself back to those days of them peeling them wrappers off my belly and them watching them bleed, you know, from the donor sites and having the heat lamps on me, cooking me to try to dry those out so they'd scab up. And you know, they're trying to find more places to take donor sites from because they couldn't take them from my back or my bottom because I had to lay on those. Right. That's all I had left to lay on, you know. And it's not like they could take a little off my leg or the inside of my thigh because that had just been blowing up, you know. I mean, they were running out of skin to take, and luckily there was enough donor sites that they could take from. But when I think of the pain that I had, that was probably the most painful that I had was the skin grafts, you know. And then the phantom pains in the hospital were next level too, you know. Phantom pain is, for those that don't know, is when you're missing a limb. It still feels like your limb is there, and it's an invisible pain. You know, you haven't been pain your foot. It's not even there anymore. And the pain is excruciating. I always explain it as a nail being stabbed into my foot. That's kind of how it feels, and super uncomfortable. And sometimes, you know, like in my right leg, I'll just get especially when it's cold out, I'll just get like I'll feel like my heel is super dull and achy,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like a dull, achy pain in my heel, like I bruised it or something like that, and I've been walking on it all day, you know?
That's so crazy. Like you still have phantom pains?
Oh, yeah, all the
Wow.
time. Yeah, all the time I'll get them, you
Will they
know,
ever
and
go
it's
away?
super trippy. I mean, they get better over time. I mean, you know, in the first couple of years, I'd get them all the time, you know, and like, you know, you get less and less of these things. And sometimes I'll just get zingers all the time. I mean, I'll probably have 30 or 40 zingers a day where I'll just be like a quick one shot. You'd be like, oh,
Right.
yeah, that was a
There
good one,
she
you
is.
know? And most time, you know, heck, I've had them on giving speeches. People don't even know it, you know, sometimes, you know, they just come and go so quick. It's just kind of a quick, you make you stop breathing for a quick second or something like that. It's just a good shot of pain. But for the most part, you know, you get them under control and you start to learn how to live with them. And the hot and cold, you know, up here when it gets super, super cold and you're in your, you know, 70-degree house and you go out and get in your 30-degree truck and then you know, you go pump some gas, so you get out of your truck and you're out in the cold for a minute and then you get back in the warm. The constant hot and cold kind of messes with those nerves a lot because you carry a lot of fluid in your legs, you know, just because you don't work them as much as you used to. So you have some extra fluid sitting in those legs, and the constant heating and cooling expands and contracts on those nerves and kind of fires them up.
That's interesting. I never would have thought the phantom pain would be like that. I've always heard of it. I just never. I didn't think it was a long term deal. I figured it was something, you know, for
Right.
2 or 3 days, and eventually it would go away. That's a,
Well, it's just kind of a double son of a bitch, you know, because you ain't even got your foot.
It hurts.
You know?
a double son of a bitch.
You
Don't
know?
even have it and it still hurts.
Yeah, that.
You know?
So you'll feel
like your first girlfriend, you know?
don't even have her and she still hurts. So you'll feel it like in your heel, where your heel should be.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Would you have ever thought it would last that long, Andy?
Not this many years. I mean, I've heard, I like Jeff said, I knew people have had it, but I didn't know years later it was still like fucking toes hurting.
Yeah. And it's weird. Like if, you know, we were going out we're walking out, we're hunting pheasants, you know, and you're like, man, I should have wore some different boots today. You know, my socks are getting damp, you know? When you tell me that in my mind, I can feel my socks getting damp. I look at my tracks. I'm like, oh, and just in my mind, it's like, I can feel my socks getting wet. Or if me and you were sitting on the dock, you had your feet in the water and you're just kind of moving around in the water, I could feel the same sensation in my mind. You know, I can still take myself back. And it's really kind of trippy how it, you know, you can sit there and kind of pretend like as if you're moving your legs that aren't there anymore and still get that almost the same sensation if somebody else is there, you know, with the noise and everything else, you know? It's wild. Your mind is incredibly powerful.
That's crazy because you know you got that asshole friend like, oh, Jack. At least his fucking toes ain't cold today.
Right? No, yeah, they are.
Well, that's why I can sit in the north and deer hunt all day. My feet don't get cold. I'm an all day sitter.
Have you ever thought about running for some sort of office?
No, how could I do that, Andy? I don't have any feet.
Well, fuck, that was wrong. Have you ever thought?
Now you're gonna say you put your foot in your mouth, and we'll get along this long line of punts. You know?
You're gonna catch a lot of shit on this one.
Have you ever thought about seeking public office? How about that?
I did. I got involved with politics pretty heavy for a long time, and worked on some presidential campaigns. Even ran a local Senate campaign, and been involved with the local, you know, basic political operating unit. You know, our local county. You know, where, you know, you elect for delegates and all that. I've been involved in pretty much every single level of politics in that sense. I love being in Washington. I like the thought of you know, world policies being made behind every door in a sense. You know, I like to think that out there people are genuinely trying to do the right things most of the time. And the one problem that I had, though, in politics is it seems like everybody that is involved in politics that's even on a campaign still is in it for some reasons for themselves. You know what I mean? Right. And I went from a world where everybody was willing to give up their lives for the men to the left and the right, and people weren't willing to give up their seat. You know, even for, I mean, not like their actual seat that they're in, but I mean, that was a bad analogy. People aren't willing to give up, you know, the smallest sacrifice and to help out, you know, for the team, you know, unless they've seen some benefit in it for themselves, you know. Right. That was the hardest part in politics, you know. And that's why it just didn't seem like a very genuine arena most of the time. I did meet a lot of genuine people, and I did make a lot of really good friends, but I just really didn't see politics as being something that I wanted to be involved in my life. And if I did get involved in politics, at the time that I was doing it, I was in my mid 20s, late 20s. I didn't want to serve forever. So what was I going to do?
Right.
I get in the house and run for 2 years and, then what, maybe someday later on in life, when my kids are gone and, I don't know. There's probably, I'd rather go shoot ducks.
I don't blame you. Like, listen, it's a scuzzy business, but I don't know. I just think guys like you that have, skin in the game. You've seen what you've seen. You have experience, and you can make an educated decision on, a lot of things. And I think that the country should be ran by people like you.
But they make it so guys like me don't want to run, though. I mean, it's, if the problem is nowadays in politics, too, is, I think about my kids,
Right.
I mean, they already have a dad that, can't really go play the best catch with them in the backyard, that can't shoot the hoops like, do they really want to hear people bashing me for other things too? I try to be the best example for my kids, and I try to live the best life that I can, and I try to do the right thing all the time, but people spin things and people to say things that, and stretch the truth on things. And I just don't want my kids to have to hear bad things about me that aren't true.
I don't think that's really bad with politicians, because there ain't one of them some bitches don't want to run again. I mean, they always want to be reelected, so it must not be as hard as we think it is. But I think it's because they live in an inner select group. I don't think guys like you become a politician and you stay in the same house in the same neighborhood and your kids are in the same school. You take your ass and you move to the affluent part of Washington, D.C. and become one of them.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want my kids to be a part of it, because then, then they're taking shots at your kids, and then it's like, oh.
Yeah. And like what happens if, like my kids are in school and some other kid's parents don't like a vote that I made. Is some other kid going to be hacking on my kid because I made a vote? You know what I mean? I don't want none of that.
I don't like. I know it's like I said, it is not a business that I want to be in either. But
I think y'all are both compartmentalizing it, that you're going to be the same life you're living now. And I don't think when you're a politician it's that way. I don't think that Ted Cruz or Dan Crenshaw or Rashida Tlaib or whatever, I don't think their kids are living and going to the same schools they were before. I think they're living in a private school, private area, and they're surrounded by people just like themselves. I don't think it's like it was back in the old days where you're going to Washington, D.C. and your kids are still having their life back home. And it may be that way for a little bit, but it doesn't stay that way.
I think one of the things I hated most about politics too is begging for money. Feeling like you need, you have to have money to run a campaign. You just can't not, not ask for money. And that was one thing that I would hate too. I'm not like Trump. I can't go self-fund my own campaign and not be in debt to anybody. If I ran for office, I'd have to go out solicit for donations, and I'd have to ask people for money, and I'd have to ask some people for a lot of money, probably, and that's just not something that that's just not really what I wanted to do in my life. I just don't really I feel like I can make a bigger impact in this world outside of politics than I can inside, the arena.
Can you imagine asking for that fucking, like Chris Christie? There's some fucker out there right now that has wrote Chris Christie a check for $100,000 to $1 million. He has no chance in hell of winning at all. What a waste of freaking money. I mean, absolutely a big waste of money. And I would feel bad if I got all that money from the people that I lost.
Mm-hmm. Well, then you owe them.
Yeah.
Well, you don't owe them nothing.
You got to give them a solid somewhere.
Well, their solid was they was going to give you money and you was going to do them a favor when they was in office is how they was figuring it. But you know that Chris Christie is still on the stage the other day, so he's collected probably $1 million to $10 million.
I think that these guys do this to stay relevant so they can get their TV spot.
Yes, there's no doubt about that. And it's on somebody else's money. But I'm like you. I would hate to go and say, hey, donate $100 to me or $500 or whatever, knowing you don't have a chance in hell to win. Because right now
these guys can ask for $5,200.
Yeah, and knowing damn well they don't have a chance in hell. Chris Christie has no chance of winning the presidential nomination. Zero. We know that. He knows that. His people know it. But yet they're still fucking out there right now somebody right now is getting a call from his office trying to get him to donate some money to him. And it ain't going to happen.
I just hope that we can have the next Ronald Reagan or the next conservative version of Obama, in a sense, a young leader that wants to go make a change, that has the right ideas, that can inspire people, because really at the end of the day, leadership, and politicians' biggest problem is that they don't understand that leadership is action. It's not words.
Right.
Everybody knows that you can say whatever you want. You could tell me you're going to be a billionaire in 2 years, and it's not going to mean nothing unless you do something about it.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what we need is somebody that's actually going to come in there. And I think that's why people really like Trump, from the get-go, is that he said, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. And if you elect me, this is what's going to happen. And that's really what he did. I think that a lot of things that Trump did was really good. I just don't maybe agree with some of the way that, some of the things that he said and stuff like that. And, he has to act more presidential in my eyes, I guess.
Yeah. What would have happened if they would have ran out of donor spots on you? Like, what do they do with the wounds at that point? If they couldn't do more skin grafts?
Start amputating, I guess.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, my right arm was kind of somewhat, I mean, I don't know if you can see it or not. My right arm was kind of somewhat experimental, This is all from my belly down here. And, right here is where my arm, this little one piece of skin that I was holding my arm on, this little piece right here, that was the only thing holding my arm on. And when I first seen it, and it would have been as simple as just cutting that spot with the scissors and folding the skin over and calling it an arm,
Jesus.
So this guy came down from the Pennsylvania Hand Institute to work on guys like me, and he pounded a rod all the way down my arm, the center of my arm, drilled a hole all the way through the middle of my arm, and pounded a rod down it, and started reattaching everything to it. And so I just grabbed skin and pieces of whatever he needed from wherever he could get it, and he tried to save my arm. And his idea was he repaired people that had already been through the emergency room, but he was trying to see what happened when people came to the emergency room, if there's something that they could do there to make things better, so that way when he got them, he could make them even better yet, And they come down there and they take these internships or whatever residencies, whatever you want to call them down there, and they can work on guys like me and try to save my arm for multiple reasons. There's not an insurance that's going to be billed. There's no malpractice. And like he said, if you don't like it when I'm done, I'll cut it off
later. How do they, like, all the muscles and stuff in there? Like, how do they reattach all that?
Yeah, it's creepy, man. Like my tendons, I can move my fingers by pulling on my arm and there's not a lot left of it, but what is left of it, I'm thankful for. I never realized how much my right arm meant to me. It helps me drive. Mm-hmm. It makes driving so much easier. The one thing that I'm the most grateful for, I could pick my kids up, when I was, when they were babies and stuff, I could do that still, and I could hold a shotgun a lot easier. So with those three things in life, I'm pretty grateful that I got my right arm, and just transferring and jumping around and everything else, having just, even though my hand doesn't really work, just having it, my arm there is it means it's a lot,
So your left hand, is your left hand your trigger finger?
Now it is, yeah. I had to relearn how to shoot left-handed pretty much, and I don't know, I feel like I'm pretty good with a shotgun now. It took me some time, and I spent some time with a guy, Dan Carlisle. He's from down your neck of the woods. You might have heard of him, an Olympic shooter. He comes up here every summer, and I go out with Mark Fitzsimmons, and we go out and we shoot with him, and he helps me out with a ton of stuff, just trying to help me really get dialed in with that left eye and being right-eye dominant and right-handed, trying to shoot everything left-handed, So whenever I'm in the duck blind and I whiff, I go, hey, guys, I'm shooting offhand, off-eye over here. Why don't you guys try it? I always got an excuse out there if I miss,
How much weight have you lost? Because,
oh, man, yeah.
You look like a different person from some of the pictures I've seen, and even from the last time we talked to you.
Yeah, and I always joke. I want everybody to know I lost my legs in the war, not the war on diabetes. No, I decided this spring I need to get myself in shape, and I really learned. I always joke with everybody, how'd you lose all that weight? I started running again. I just started running like Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
No, I just kind of learned that whatever you put in your mouth really matters. And I was eating way too much, than I should have been, and I just had to get that stuff dialed back in. If I want to be the best version of myself and live the words that I say, I need to start taking better care of myself. And when I stepped on that IED, I didn't really realize how much it took out of me. It took me a long time to get stuff in my life figured out, from the mental side of it to physically just trying to be able to move again and get all my limbs working again and everything else that, it just took me a long time to kind of rebuild back to creating the best version of myself that I am today. And I'm gonna try to be a better version of myself tomorrow, and that's what I do every single day. And if I'm not putting the best things in my body, then I'm not gonna be able to be the best self. And so I just kind of got my nutrition dialed in, and I want to be an example for my kids. It's if you want to be a great bow hunter, then be fit so you can drag a deer out by yourself. Be able to go into the woods and climb up a tree, and not when you get in the tree, you don't feel like you're gonna pass out because you're winded.
Right.
And if the world does turn to a mean place, you better be in shape because you're gonna you need to protect the world. You need to protect your country. You need to protect your family. You need to be able to do those things. And if I say those things to my kids, I should be doing the same thing.
Yeah, I saw a video you were bench pressing.
Oh yeah, I like to lift. It's a good release. It's good for me to stay in shape, and sometimes you want to lift heavy stuff, and sometimes you don't. And I'm still lucky. I remember calling my surgeon. I'm like, if I put 315 pounds on this thing, is this rod gonna bend in my arm? He's like, oh no, you can't break that thing. So. I like to work out. It's good for me. Getting stronger, getting healthier. Just trying to become the best version of myself.
315. That's what you're putting on there.
Well, I can hit that 3 or 4 times, but any more than that, it starts getting hard on the shoulder.
That's a shitload of weight.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's heavy.
Squat's not quite there. You did comment somebody asked you how much you were squatting these days, and you had a pretty quick comment. So.
Yeah, it starts to stay on the squat rack, But Wednesday's leg day. You're not going to catch me at the gym on Wednesdays.
So how did you catch this catfish that you were talking about? What, 65 pounds?
Catfishing is a extreme passion of mine. Me and a buddy hunting pheasants out in South Dakota. I ran into this guy. He was a retired fifth group guy, and he said, "Can I get a ride with you out to the ranch?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." So we're riding to the ranch, and he tells me he lives down by Fort Campbell still, but he always goes to northern Alabama to catch these monster catfish. And I'm thinking, this hillbilly son of a gun, And he's telling me all about it, and he said, "You should come down and try catfishing sometime." Well, I'll go on an adventure anytime, so we finished up hunting out in South Dakota, and I got home, and he calls me. He's like, "When are you coming down?" I don't think I was even home for 24 hours, And so I jumped in the truck and headed down there. And I remember hanging onto that fishing pole that first time I was hooked into a catfish. And I was like, "Oh, I get this. This is cool." They just fight. They're big. They're huge. And every time I throw them lines out, I just think, "Yep, this is the time. I'm gonna be the guy on the state record plaque." Every time I throw a line out, I really think it. And I've had him pull me out of my wheelchair before, trying to hang on to him. Pull me around to the live well, trying to hang on to the pole. You can hear the trolling motor just up there cranking, trying to keep you on spot lock. This fish is dragging the boat around. And sometimes you catch a monster and he just floats her up to the top and says, "Put me in the net, take a picture with me, and send me back down." And we never keep them. We never really eat them. Everybody asks if I do, and I say, "No, there's a grocery store between the landing and the house. I'm stopping to get steak." But no, they're just a ride to catch. You go out there, sometimes you're in 30 feet of water, sometimes you're in 90 feet of water, and you do a lot of dragging, a little bit of suspending, and just depending on conditions. And I think that's really what I truly love about anything in the outdoors. It doesn't really matter what I'm doing. If I'm shooting ducks somewhere up in North Dakota, or if I'm catching fish in Alabama, or whatever it may be, I think the one thing that I really enjoy about the outdoors is all the adversity that we face, whether it's the wind, the conditions, the whatever it may be, but it's always just overcoming that adversity. The fish aren't biting this way. Let's change up the way we're hooking our bait. Let's do this. I always like the constantly trying to become a better at whatever you're doing and fighting the adversity and trying to put it all into correlation into whatever it is you're trying to do, and it keeps you distracted from the things in life that you want to be distracted from. If you fall in love with the outdoors, you're always checking wind speeds, you're always checking this, and would this blind work on Thursday night when I can get out one night hunting this week, or whatever it may be, And after you've been through a lot of awful things, the outdoors can give you a place to go and hide, from all those bad things.
Yeah, 65-pound catfish. That's a hoss.
It's a big fish. He came in pretty nice, honestly, and we actually thought we were hung up in a tree at first, and we got hooked into him. we were trying to move the boat over to try to get the hook out of the tree. And I was like, and Roger's like, I don't think that's a tree. I think that's a fish. I said, well, give me that pole. So I got hold of it and I started reeling on it. I said, this is a good fish. And he's dragging us around then, and we ended up getting him pulled in the boat. And sometimes the hardest part about catfishing is honestly getting the dang thing in the boat. You know, you got a 65 pound non-willing participant. Right. You got yourself in troubles here. Sometimes they get out of hand, you know, and then you get them in the boat and you're trying to hold them for a picture and they're slapping you in the face. You got slime all over you. It's just a riot out there.
Have you talked to any of the people that were there the day that saved your life?
Oh yeah. I mean, me and Doc have seen each other numerous times. Whenever I go through St. Louis, I see my old platoon leader. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've seen a lot of the guys, spent a lot of time with a lot of the guys that were with me that day when I was wounded. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you like that? Do you kind of like that reunion, or is it one of those things that you're just like, you kind of hope to move past?
No, I mean, it's always great. I mean, Hurley, the guy that I was wounded with that day, he just moved up here to Minnesota just over a year ago, you know, and he's up here now. And so I see him, you know, all the time. And you know, it's, no, I love seeing my guys. I love spending time with those guys, you know, and I think it's good too for those guys to see that I'm living a good life and I'm still out here doing stuff. And, you know, it was worth saving my life that day, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's such an inspiration. I mean, you know, you really are just, you know, I
just think about it too. Like if you're laying around, you know, doing nothing with your life, you know, like those guys that saved my life that day, it'd be a huge slap in the face of them, you know, for if I just laid around and waited to die the rest of my life after they pulled me off the battlefield, you know, they should have just let me die out there otherwise, you know?
And one of the things I remember, you know, from the last time we talked to you is, you know, you just never took any, and you know, they kept telling you, oh, this depression is going to come, the depression is going to come. And it's like, still waiting
for it. Still waiting. Yeah. I mean, you know, life is what you make it. It really is, you know. And I tell my kids all the time, you know, if everything in your life is your fault, whether good things happen to you or bad things happen to you, everything in your life is your fault. You know, if you're out there doing the best you can every single day and you're doing the right things, good things are going to happen, you know. And if you can approach things with the right attitude, you can overcome anything. You know, with a bad attitude, you can't overcome anything. And after you've been through things that I've been through, there's not too many things in life that you can really throw at me that I'm not really going to believe that I can't get through a situation, or that I don't know if I can do this, or I'm ever going to doubt myself because of all the things that I've been through. I mean, I've walked off a chopper in the middle of the night, you know, willing to take on some of the baddest dudes in the world, you know. You know, what can I do in this world now? You know, I've had all 4 of my limbs ripped off and woke up in a hospital bed with literally nothing in my life. You know, I had nothing at that point with me. You know, I didn't have anything, you know, and here I am sitting here today, you know, happy as ever. So sometimes we find ourselves down. It's as simple as doing nothing but just looking up and heading in that direction. Yeah. You know,
how many other close calls did you have while you were over there where it was like, I mean, that could have gone, you know, a totally different way?
Yeah, I say all the time, you know, the day that I was wounded probably wasn't even the day I was closest to dying. You know, when we were gunfighting over all the time, you know, you hear them. You know, if you hear them crack, that's good news. You hear them hiss, that was close. You know, you know, they're shooting at us all the time. You know, you'd be out in the middle of a field and you just start eating rounds. You know, you get in these corridors, you can't tell which way the gunfire's coming from. It's echoing so bad. You know, it's just, you don't know if it's your guys shooting or if it's them shooting. You know, you don't know if it's that guys flanking. You know, so there's stuff flying all over all the time. I remember one day my buddy Dawkins was wounded and we had guys trying to get down there with trucks to drive him out of there to go get him onto a helicopter. And as it was coming down the ditch, I was up on the corner of it, and the mine roller in the front of it was rolling down this wadi, and it hit an IED. And the tire off the mine roller came flying about, lopped my head off, you know. You know, you just never know over there. I mean, not only was it people shooting at you, but, you know, you're fighting around these graveyards with rocks everywhere. There's a lot of ricocheting going on, too, you know. And so you just never knew what it was, where it was coming from. You know, you get in these gunfights, and you know, you hear an RPG go off, and then you hear it land, and you can kind of keep track of that. You know, there'd be 2 in the air, and then there'd be 1 in the air, and then you're all right, we can shoot now. And, you know, you'd be trying to keep track of stuff, and then they start volleying too many RPGs at you, and you can't keep track of how many are in the air, and you just kind of got to gamble sometimes and get up and get shooting, you know, and gain fire superiority.
Yeah. What, so you said if you hear them crack, you're okay, but if you hear them hiss, it was close.
That was close. Yeah, that was close. Yeah, you know, it's just, you can tell the difference, you know, you get shot at enough, you know, how close it was to you and if it was actually meant for you or somebody else, and and you kind of gotta. Usually, if there's one, there's a lot more
Right.
coming.
So how long does it take to kind of adjust to now everywhere you go, the potential for a fight is, great. I mean, everywhere you go is a threat. You know what I mean? Like you get over there, you're prepared on paper as far as much as the government can get you prepared for going over there. But like when the bullets start really, really flying and getting close, how long does it take you to adjust?
Um, Adjust to just what's going
Yeah,
on and like knowing
just
what to
knowing
do
that
and like
like
feeling confident.
everywhere is a problem.
Yeah, I mean, you just assume everything's trying to kill you over there from every direction. You're never letting your guard down. There's always somebody watching some direction. You're trying to get intel all the time from eyes above that trying to tell you what's going on. There's guys trying to make sure there's other what assets are available to us. If there's jets above us, if there's helicopters in the area, like stuff like that. But once the bullets start flying, we've done so many reaction to contacts and training that, your training just kind of kicks in. You everybody contact whatever direction is coming from, 12 o'clock, 9 o'clock, whatever direction the contact's coming from. And most people would get down and run, but we turn in and we head to the fire and we start laying into the trigger and gain that fire superiority. That's always the main thing, is when that gunfight kicks off, you better be top dog, because you don't want to be the one pinned down having them maneuver on you. You want to have them pinned down maneuvering on them.
Right. Do you bring that paranoia back home with you at all? Or is that something that you don't
really No, not really. Like, there's some things that I noticed, like when I built my shop here at my house, I put a door on each end because I never want to be trapped in a building. I looking back now, I'm like, why'd I put a door there? That was dumb. But in my mind there, I was like, I don't want to. I need to have 2 doors in this building because I don't want to be trapped in the shop. Ever. Certain things like that. You start putting. You don't want to ever find yourself in certain situations, but. There's this race I go to every year in St. Louis, and there's a huge explosion before the race all the time, like pyrotechnics, And I remember this last year, it went off, and I about hit the floor. And somebody's like, "Oh my God, did it scare you?" And it's like, it's not like it took me back to Afghanistan. It wasn't like that. It was more like I've heard it so much that I know when shit goes off, you just need to get down, or it's gonna hit you in the head, bro. It's just it's not like I'm scared. Right. It's just it's happened so often that or you hear that some people hear a crack behind them and they look, and I go for the ground. It's like, don't look at the bullet. It's coming right at you. You know what I mean? Get down. And that was the thing over there in Afghanistan was is the worst feeling was when you heard that first crack, because usually they're not going to shoot at you unless they think they got you in the best position for themselves. It's an ambush, so they're not going to shoot at you if they think you're in a better position than them. So typically whenever you get shot at, you try to push through the gunfire and you try to get out of that position and try to maneuver on them immediately, because there's a reason that they're shooting at you where you're at, So
yeah, like you said, they're never you're never going to go into a fight where have a superior position on them.
Well, think about it. I mean, if you see a bunch of ducks land in one spot in the field, that's where you're going to go set up in that field, because, that's where that's where you're going to go ambush them, is where it's best for you. You're not going to set up in a bad spot where you got no cover and you're profiled so bad. It's like sitting out in the middle of a field trying to deer hunt, thinking you're sitting in a blind. It just doesn't. It's not the best position for the deer hunter, so
everything's working against you over there.
Everything all the time. Yeah. It's, and then usually, if you're not getting gunfire from a certain direction, they probably want you to go that way because there's probably an IED on the other end of that, Jesus. And basically in Afghanistan, you always took the stupidest way possible. If there's a path right in front of you, that's the cleanest path in the world, you're going to climb up on that wall and you're going to walk down the damn wall. You know what I mean? It's, anything that didn't make sense, that's the way that you went. You just try to think of whatever made sense, do the opposite and head that way. If they're like, nobody would ever walk across this grapevine field here. You have to hop over 50 walls. Yeah. Well, guess what we're doing? We're hopping over 50 walls,
Was there any part of Afghanistan that was pretty?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's tons of Afghanistan. It was beautiful. The sunsets in Afghanistan with the mountains in the back was the best. It was super cool being down on the Arghandab River and looking across the river and seeing the red desert. It's just pure sand on the other side of the river, and we're standing on this fertile soil. Um, when the poppies would, or the opium would, the poppy would bloom. There'd be tons of the purple and pink flowers, and stuff, and it was really pretty. The grapevines would be very lush, in the summertime, and there's a lot of greenery. It was just obviously the architecture was pretty awful. It was a bunch of mud huts, but for the most part, it was there's just fields and acres and acres. Where I was at, it was just acres and acres and acres of marijuana and opium. That's all.
Really? And is everybody over there partaking in the marijuana and the opium?
No, nobody. Nobody is. That's against a religion, So basically, they just export it through probably a port in Pakistan, or take it by car to Europe. And after I was wounded, I know there were some of my guys that were running missions with like CIA, DEA, going and raiding these labs, that were basically, tearing down the opium into raw tar,
So what do they do? How'd they figure out how to make opium?
They've been doing it in the Chinese in the 1500s.
But what do you have to do to it?
I have no idea.
You peel that.
I just know they have to maybe boil it or do something to it or somehow extract that opium out of it. And it basically it drips, is what I believe. They score the poppy and then it drips and they collect the tar. It's raw, and then
black tar heroin.
They cook it down.
That's what opium is.
Yes, black tar heroin. Yep, that's how they make heroin, is out of opium. But they take the bud, and I don't know that if they call it a bud even, but it's a flower, and they take it, and I think it's like hard, like one of the,
like a nut almost.
Yeah, and then they cut it, and I don't know if they boil it or they cook it or whatever they do.
Drips, yeah. And they drip and it collects it.
It's kind of like maple syrup, except they're getting it out of is what it is, basically.
Well, I've seen the opium dens on like TV and stuff, so I didn't know what they did.
They've done it for years, but the opium has been around for the Chinese 13th, 14th century. I mean, it's an old drug that they've done, and I'm sure somebody had a fucking poppy seed out there, and some sucker saw it and said, "Oh, we'll take that and see what it is." And we got high,
but I mean,
right?
There's just fields and fields and fields of that.
And it just grows wild.
No, they plant it.
They plant it?
No,
they cultivate it.
No, they cultivate. They have all their fields are gridded off, in small 10 by 10 grids, and they'll flood that thing every single day. They'll be out there with the pump running, and they'll flood one grid, and they'll stick a clump of mud in that little grid, and then they'll fill the next one, and they'll just keep doing that all day long, until all their fields are flooded, and then we have to go walk across flooded fields.
CIA has to. CIA's got to make a profit.
That's true too.
But there was just, there was so much. I don't even know where it could all even go. It's just.
It goes on.
I don't even know. There's so much marijuana, so much opium. It was just unlimited there. As far as you could see, and that's what they grew. I guess apparently it must be the ultimate cash crop.
Yeah. Well, otherwise we wouldn't give a shit about it. It's like oil.
What do? They just broadcast it?
And that was one of the things that we were doing there too. Was we were trying to. This was the dumbest stuff they had us doing. Was trying to talk them into growing corn down there.
Yeah, give up your millions of dollars and let's grow something that costs $7 a bushel.
Yeah, they're like, this is something that you can actually put in the market, and you can it'd be a way to build an economy. And they're going, you're telling me you'll give me $4 a bushel for that?
Yeah.
Or you'll give me $4 million for this brick, It's like I'm gonna stick with what I got going here.
The CIA ain't gonna land covert operations in there and tick up your corn and fly it to fucking market like they do the heroin.
Yeah,
you sound like a conspiracy theorist.
It's not a conspiracy theory. The CIA's been in the heroin business for they were doing it in Vietnam. It's an old business. You don't think they're not growing heroin in Afghanistan like he said, where they're not using it, if they weren't making some money shipping it somewhere else?
Oh, that's how the Taliban's been funded for years. That's basically how they funded themselves is taxing those people 100%. It's a crop to fund the Taliban, and in return they'd protect them.
Just like cocaine use in Colombia. Most of the Colombians are not using cocaine; they're shipping the shit to the United States or to Europe. Same deal,
right? Drugs are a crazy thing. It's just crazy to me how you take this thing that's growing and then all of a sudden you do different thing with marijuana. You just kind of dry it out and light it, and you're done there.
Dry it out and light it.
Dry it out and light it. But like you got opium, and I don't know what you got to do to it, but apparently it sounds pretty complicated.
Yeah, it's not an easy process. It's not something you're just gonna just whip out real quick.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just crazy that humans have found out. Coffee beans make sense. They're pretty, and you put them in your mouth, and then all of a sudden you get energy. That makes sense.
But methamphetamines, fuckers got to be a chemist to make methamphetamines. You got to be a smart guy.
Yeah. So it's just crazy that there's people that are like, okay, if we do this and it doesn't burn us alive, then maybe we can like smoke it or something.
You have to realize though, back in the day though, think about how much time these people had to do nothing. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not like they were bored at night scrolling on TikTok, I mean, they're probably out there tasting plants and stuff in the evening, and that plant smoked up, maybe try this one, and then found out that wasn't very good. And that's how they ended up with popcorn,
Yeah. I don't know. We love getting fucked up as human beings, I guess.
Yes, sir.
Oh, it's. I think it's. I think people like to really escape reality. I think that's what it is. They don't like the reality around them, and it's their way of escaping it. And I for as long as people have been around. I mean, look at what people have done during the Prohibition just to get messed up. I mean, people died just to get drunk.
Bathtub gin. Well, I think elephants will keep. I think elephants will keep fruit in their mouth until it ferments. So that they get So all animals like escaping reality, I guess. So what's next for you?
Oh man, I'm working on another book. Hopefully have that done here by the end of the year. I've been podcasting a little bit on my own. I got a podcast out of the Mankato here, and we're just talking to people about the service that they do in our community and trying to highlight them and just sharing their stories. So I've been enjoying doing that. Just trying to stay adventurous. I want to get on some more hunts. I want to go in some different places and hunt some different stuff. My true passion in life is shooting things with wings. I just, I want to do something more of that in some different places with some different people. And I don't know what's going to come. I'd like to do some offshore fishing. I haven't done a bunch of that, but I'd like to try some of that. I just love being in the outdoors, adventures. I thought about maybe trying to go and get scuba certified this winter. Trying to do something like that. I was just trying to be working at something, all the time, some sort, And obviously, I got all my business stuff going on. I'm doing a ton of motivational speaking still. I've been traveling all over doing a ton of that, and so that's really good right now. I'm really happy with the way things are going and progressing, and there's always something going on. We got the racing team we race with all summer long. We're racing anywhere between 40 and 60 nights a year with them all over the country. So that's a lot of traveling, and kids are playing sports and stuff now too. So there's not a whole lot of time to, sit still,
Do you enjoy the riding process?
Yeah, I do. I feel like if I don't, talk about my experiences as much as I can and the things that I learned by going through it, then it makes my sacrifice worth nothing, If I went through this all and learned a bunch through it and didn't share with anybody, then that's kind of selfish and it's pointless in a sense, So I find writing as a way to honor my sacrifice and the things that I've gone through, to try to make the world the best place that it possibly can be. So people understand what it means to impact somebody's life, because so many people have impacted mine. When you make things about somebody else, you can't fail for yourself, because you don't want to let anybody down or you this or that, but it's really easy to talk to yourself, make your excuses for yourself, and things like that, Well,
listen, we've gone on almost 2 hours. It's been another great episode. I appreciate your time. Next November, you need to make plans to get down here. Shoot a speckle belly.
I would love that. Yeah, I'd love that. And if anybody wants to get a copy of my book, they can go to jackzimmermanmn.com or looking for me to come speak to your company or school or church or whatever it may be, have a dinner or something like that you'd like to see me come speak at. Put us in a request and we'll see if we can work it out so I can make it to their event or company or whatever it is.
And it's jackzimmermanmn.com. That's the website?
Yep, as in like Mike November. Yeah, as in Minnesota.
Yeah, Minnesota. Yeah. That's the easiest way to get a hold of you that way?
Yeah, for sure. Go on there. Go to my social medias, Jack Zimmerman, 5 minutes, 300 seconds. That changed my life. And or Instagram, Jack Zimmerman 23. Yeah, any of those places. hit me up there, and we'll see if we can work something out for me to come speak to your group. And go ahead and buy a copy of my book off my website. And,
very cool.
Yeah,
and then we got another book coming out hopefully by the end of the year.
Yeah, we're looking at writing a book about outdoors through the eyes of combat.
Cool, very cool. Well, listen, when that comes out, we'll get you on after hunting season or something. It's kind of balls to the walls for us, so maybe in February, March, get you back on here and talk about your new book.
Perfect. Thanks,
awesome.
Danny.
Awesome.
Hey, thank you, Jack. I appreciate it very much. God bless you. Have a great Thanksgiving, my friend.
Yeah, you guys too. And keep up the good fight and keep making these great podcasts. I know everybody enjoys listening to them.
Thank you very much. Well, have a happy holidays. Thanksgiving and Christmas are here. Spoil those kiddos.
Yeah. Support those sponsors, right?
Yeah, there you go. See you, bud.
Yeah,
Bye.
Thanks, man.
Great guy. True American hero.
He is. Yes, he is. All right, it is time to go scout now.
It's warm again. God almighty.
The flies.
You're always bitching about flies. Some guy asked me the other day about wasp. He said, y'all got wasp and
yes,
flies
we have
and
wasp
everywhere in your stuff? I said, no, just Andy bitches a lot, but we do have flies again. It happens when it goes 26 and 24 degrees 2 mornings in a row to 95 a week, and now we're back up to 65 again. Yep. It's supposed to be wet Thanksgiving, from Thanksgiving to Sunday, they say that week, so hopefully we'll see. All right, thank y'all for listening to us. God bless y'all. Have a great week. Anybody looking for a hunt, I have November 29th, November 30th, and December 1st open. 3 days goose hunt, lodge and meals. It's $900, normally $1,350. I can do a group of 6 to 8 guys that day. November 29th, 30th, and December 1st. Thank you. God bless y'all and have a great week.
Ladies and gentlemen, go check out all of our amazing sponsors. Check out Stanfield Outfitters. It's not too late. You can book that last-minute goose hunting trip out here. Alpha Outdoor Specialties, Hemp Hill Farms, Mossberg, Double T British Kennels, Ducks Unlimited, Lucky Duck, Looking Glass Podcast, Shin Gear, Dirty Duck Coffee, Dive Bomb Industries, Pacific Calls, Boss Shop Shells, and MLR Graphics.